Well, thank you, everyone. I'm excited to go last, but also daunted, because when we talk and think about what it means to be great teachers, great leaders, great parents, you guys have covered everything already. I chose to go last to talk about what it means to cultivate excellent students. But here's the difficulty, which you may have realized. No matter how you try as a teacher, no matter how you try as a leader, you cannot force a student to do anything that they don't want to do, right? So we can talk nicely about what our responsibility is, and that's important. So I want to try to think, how can we then encourage and make what we're trying to do accessible, desirable, inspirational for our students, so that they may too grab a hold of these good things. I will remind you, our mission statement is to cultivate excellent people through the pursuit of truth, beauty, and goodness. The word cultivate is important to us because it ties into this idea. We can't force it to happen, but we can create the conditions. We can actually nurture and nourish, maintain and build and create the possibility for excellence to happen. But I want to point out an important rule. We can refer to it as the law of sowing and reaping. That if you want to produce excellence, you have to sow excellent seeds. Right? You have to sow good things, excellent things, into the lives of students. And over time, given the right conditions, the right care, the right nurturing, it will develop, it will flourish. It is a natural process, as certain as farming, hence the agricultural metaphor. A farmer can plant the seed, can tend, can cultivate, can nourish, can fertilize, can water, and they can watch the seed grow and develop. Our job then is to, in similar fashion, reduce the obstacles, limit the things that can prevent or inhibit growth, and promote those things which will cause flourishing. Simply put, this is a nice way of thinking about it. What are we trying to impart to our students? Mortimer Adler would say that discipline in the traditional liberal arts imparts the skills by which an individual becomes adept at learning. They are the arts of reading and writing, of speaking and listening, of observing, measuring, calculating, the arts of grammar, rhetoric, and logic, the mathematical arts, the arts of investigation. Without some proficiency in these arts, no one can learn very much, whether assisted or not by the use of books and the tutelage of teachers. We can take it one step further, though. If we want our students to be excellent readers, they should read excellent things. If we want our students to be excellent writers, they should read excellent writing and emulate it, and so on. Right? Choose that which is best for our students and impart to them the skills. That's our job. It is to give them the skills and the dispositions and the habits of excellence, and then watch them flourish and watch them grow. That's how we cultivate excellent teachers. But something here is really important. Because of the challenge that we are presenting to our students, it is difficult, and so we have to be willing to walk alongside our students, coaching them and showing them that it will be possible. I loved Dr. Herring's example of his teacher whose expectations were just way too high, yet somehow he made it possible for his students, right? And one of the things that helps with that is a sense of unquenchable or irrepressible goodwill towards our students. Always believing that they can, always believing that they should, always believing that they will. But will they make mistakes along the way? Yes, of course they will, because we all do. So let me remind you, let's not hold those mistakes against the students the same way that you wouldn't want your mistakes to be held against you. If we allow that, their mistakes, to shape the way we think about students, it's really more of an indictment upon us and our attitude towards our students. And at the end of the day, if we no longer believe that a student can become excellent, then they won't. And they certainly won't have the opportunity in your classroom. So conversely, demonstrating this irrepressible goodwill, this belief that they can, giving them the means and the tools in order to do it. I wanted to share with you an idea. It's called the law of diffusion of innovation. Well developed to talk about how new technology gets absorbed and accepted by society, I think it has something important to say about education. So let me share with you just this. I'll set the scene for it if I could. Let's say a company develops a new idea. They want people to buy it. Some people are waiting for it. They would be called innovators or early adopters. These are the people who, if you remember, would line up outside the Apple store when the new version of the iPhone was about to be released, because they wanted to be the first to have it in their hands. You're not working very hard to sell those people. They are coming to you to get it, right? In the middle, though, the majority of people, they don't stand in line. They don't rush out and buy it. They usually wait for the second or third iteration. They wait for the bugs to be worked out, and they wait until the product proves itself to be useful before they're willing to invest. And then there's some people, they're called the laggards, who no matter how much you advertise to them, they refuse to buy it. Just as our grandparents were still using rotary phones when some people were lining up to buy their iPhones, right? The interesting thing is, though, and the author Malcolm Gladwell identified this, that if you can tap into the majority, he referred to it as the tipping point. If you can start to get the majority interested in your product, you can sell this product to everybody. And even today, your grandparents probably have an iPhone in their hands. Their early resistance is overcome. Why? Because they fell in love with the technology? No, it's because everybody else had it, right? And so finally, they're convinced it must be worth having. So if you can start to tap into the majority, here's the interesting thing. As people begin to adopt it, they become the best sellers, advocators for what you're trying to produce, right? They will drag the late majority. They will drag the laggards with them if you can get through to them. So here's how I would change this to represent the law of diffusion of learning. Because ideas work the same way. And that's my premise here. In education, the ideas, adopting a new idea, learning something, works in a very similar fashion. Some students will get it immediately. You just have to say it, and it seems like they've already got everything that you need. Right? They instantly understand. They're the innovators. The early adopters, they probably just need you to explain it one time. If you just talk it through, maybe have them challenge them with a question or two, then they'll get it. Then the majority are going to need some explanations, some case studies, and maybe even some practice. If they get enough practice, then they will understand. And some students at the other end of the distribution curve, they will struggle. And they will continue to struggle with a particular idea even after you've done all of that work, right? So there's a similar distribution of students. So I would argue that what we need to do as educators is have this same concept in mind. We should be aiming for the top third of our students. We should be encouraging that top third. We should be focused on this tipping point. Because when we can tap into that majority, just as with a new piece of technology, those students then begin to diffuse that idea through the classroom as well. And they drag other people with them. And the ones at the bottom will get pulled up as well because they have no choice. See, I mean it that way. When we set the conditions and we don't allow there to be anything but the conditions for success, students will follow along with our prompting. And it is inevitable. It is inevitable, but it's not easy, right? It's not easy. But I want you to keep this idea in mind for a moment. And so one rebuttal might be, but we need to help those students that are at the lower end. And I totally understand that. I'm not arguing that we don't help. In fact, I would argue that we go out of our way to help those students. We do everything we can to make information accessible to them. However, if you focus on the right side of the bell curve, what you are doing is ignoring the majority. And you're ignoring those higher achieving students. You're not allowing them to have these sort of challenges and the sort of complexity that will allow them to grow. You can still pretty much guarantee that they will pass the test at the end, but they themselves are not growing. And as people who love learning and as people who are dedicated to see students grow, we should want all of our students to grow and to improve. So by focusing too low on this distribution circle, what we actually do is create a sort of passivity and boredom amongst the highest achievers. And the net effect of that is wrong because they are the ones that we want to set the culture and the tone of our classrooms. They are the ones who we want to drive the academic achievement. So we need to have this dual focus in mind. And I'm going to say a couple things, and I'll defend them, but they may sound a little bit challenging at first, but I want to point this out. Equal opportunity does not mean equal achievement in our classrooms, right? Equal opportunity does not mean equal achievement in our classrooms. However, what we need to be dedicated to is the proposition that every student will improve. From wherever they came in to our class to when they leave, they will be better. They will have grown. They will have learned something. And that's what's most important to us. That's what should drive us as teachers. Because it's those moments when we recognize that our students have acquired something new. When we see that light come on in their eyes and they recognize it and they get it. Those are the things that are important to us. In fact, I would take it a step further and say praise that effort, praise that improvement, not the achievement. Because what we want is for our students to recognize they shouldn't be measuring themselves against others. They should be measuring themselves against their own track record, their own history. Are they a better person? Are they a better human being than when they walked in? Have they learned something? Have they grown? So this is a challenging idea, but it's really important to our students that we have this mindset that they can achieve. Now, maybe our standards are high, but if we have the goodwill to encourage them, then they will achieve it too. They will achieve growth. They will achieve improvement. I'm going to throw out a few suggestions to you. I'm going to describe them briefly. But these are some things we can do to encourage the right kind of rigor in our classroom. Teach beyond the test. Right? Don't just teach until you've got to the point where you're like, oh, this is everything that I know they need to know. So I think we're done for the next couple days until we start a new unit. Right? Teach beyond the test. Keep going deeper. Give them more. Some of the best teachers I know are ones whose work in the classroom was really, really hard, and then suddenly it seemed like the tests were a little bit easier. And why? Because they challenged us to go deeper than we needed to. I think there's a rationale for that, right? If not everyone, or let me put it this way, everyone will forget something that they've learned, right? So if we only teach up to the point that we're going to test, people are going to fall back from that point. They're going to fall below where we expect them to be. If you teach beyond the test and they fall back a little bit, they're still going to pass. Does that make sense? It's unusual, but it works in practice if you make it harder than you need to. There's actually a teaching philosophy, I'll get into it another time, called that we learn best through desirable difficulties. Things that are difficult enough to cause us to struggle, but desirable enough that we know we can achieve them if we put in the effort. And that's when learning is the strongest and the most durable. There's a principle in teaching called double planning, which I like to point out. Double planning is that you as a teacher plan what you are going to do at any given moment in class, but the double planning is that you always plan what the students will be doing at any given moment in your class. So that there's no wasted time and there's no ambiguity, and so that you know that the students are giving or having the opportunity to work, right? And bear this in mind. We can develop great lesson plans, but if we're just talking and they're not engaged, if they're not doing something, it's going to fall on deaf ears. And then every teacher, I would encourage you, the number one thing that you can do as a teacher to cultivate excellence is to be willing to look back on what you did, reflect on it, revise what you did, and refine it. Learn to improve. Get better at your own craft. Get better at delivering material. Reflect on your practice and how well the students are doing. Are they understanding it? Did they get what I was saying? Do I need to say it again? Do I need to reteach? Learn to reflect and to revise and to refine. I'm also going to give you some things just briefly here, things to avoid. Relieving a student of their responsibility, right? Sometimes we are motivated to do that because we have so much goodwill that we don't want the students to struggle. When actually we would argue it is the struggle itself that is necessary for that student to learn and grow. So out of a overabundance of compassion, sometimes we remove the difficulty or we allow a student a pass. And I would caution you, that's to make you feel better. It's not to help the student. Don't reduce the struggle out of a sense of pity or because people complain or because they're nagging you, right? Again, reassure the student. Have this belief in them that they can do it and allow them to experience the struggle that they need to in order to learn what is necessary. But through this all, don't lose patience. Don't lose patience. We are playing a long game here. And it takes a while to see the results, just as growing crops takes a while to see the harvest, right? Don't lose patience in that, but keep it in mind. So I would argue this: excellence in our students is inevitable if we as teachers can show an unwavering resolve to have high expectations handed down with goodwill to our students, with compassion for the struggles that they may be going to or maybe going to go through, with an understanding of the obstacles that they may have individually to achieve what we want them to achieve, but never wavering from those high expectations that we place on our students. And secondly, if we want our students to develop excellence, they need to have the opportunity to demonstrate it to you. They need to succeed. We have to give them the opportunities. We have to provide for them the means. And if they fall short one time, we have to provide it again so that we can say, this is how. This is what I was trying to show you. This is how you can succeed. This is what I need you to do next. If we give our students these opportunities, if we maintain these expectations with goodwill, then I truly believe that our students will be excellent. I would say it this way too, and you'll hear more about this as we work through the year, that this system works when we are all taking responsibility for what is our role in this task. As teachers, we need to be responsible for creating these conditions, but as students need to be responsible for engaging in the task of learning. And we need to allow them to do that by giving them the opportunity, by inspiring them, by instilling them this belief that they can do it. I encourage you to think of ways that you can make students responsible in your classroom, responsible to their own education. Because after all, it is happening in their mind, not in ours, right? And so they need to take responsibility for their job, as it were. I was trying to think of a better word, but it's their job, right? It's their job to be here and to learn. I encourage you to have conversations with colleagues and with your school leadership and so on of how to make students more responsible towards their own learning. But it starts by sharing the passion and the goodwill. It starts by sharing the encouragement and asking the questions. And it continues when we have an unwavering resolve to see our students succeed and to improve. So thank you, everyone. Anticipate a great year at Thales Academy. Looking forward to the challenge, and we treasure the opportunity to be able to speak to you at the beginning of this year and lay out a mission that we can all collectively work towards, because there is great power, there is great synergy in us all working towards this one initiative. So here's to a great 2023, and thank you all for being a part of that journey.